Hi, mystery writers. Whoa, technical stuff. And anyway, here we are on Mystery Writer Studio. And today I want to talk about who's on first in your story. And the bottom line is it's you, the author. And this is especially important for beginning authors because you don't have a fan base. And so it's your job to get your reader excited about reading the rest of your mystery. The first few pages of your story will tell the reader whether they want to read more. And that's it. Your reader won't wait for you to get ready to begin to commence. That's just the way it is. Your opening pages are an appetizer for the main meal of your story. So you want to give the reader everything they want to read in your story. The first 10 pages of the first chapter will set your reader's expectations for the rest of the book. So if you want them to continue through the next 300 or so pages, you want to give them a good reason to keep reading. You want to tempt your readers with anticipation for a good read. Right at the beginning is the time to introduce your story and story elements. How you tell the story now creates your reader's desire to continue. So first of all, you want to show how you tell the story. Deciding how to start your mystery influences everything that comes later in your story. Knowing you need to introduce your detective soon, you'll still need to make a story. You want to get your readers interested in this story so you can set your story in motion. Right away, your reader will know the point of view. Is it first person, third person, right? You demonstrate the narration and the narrator's voice. So this is something that happens right away. And you set the tone for your story. Is it going to be dark or dramatic or thoughtful or touched with humor? These are all things your readers want to know, and they want to know them right away. This is why it's really dangerous to start your story one way and then switch, because you've already told the readers, this is the way I'm telling the story, all right? So know enough about your story to set that tone right from the beginning. If you change the tone later, your reader's going to feel cheated. And it's like a bait and switch sale. They thought it was going to be lighthearted, or they thought it was going to be dramatic, and that turns out to be something else. So be true to your genre. If your story is a mystery, hint at how you're setting up the puzzle. Introduce your protagonist. Right away, introduce your protagonist. Give them a name and introduce them in action. I've talked a lot about this before. Show skills your sleuth will use to solve that murder puzzle. You don't have to show all their skills. You just want to hint at this sleuth, my main protagonist, has this skill and maybe this skill. Um, so so your reader goes, whenever this mystery puzzle shows up, it's probably true that this character is going to be able to solve the puzzle. You may not be at this inciting incident yet at the very beginning of your story, a discovered body, but give your reader a sense of how your protagonist will meet more significant challenges. Show them in action. You want your reader to care enough about your protagonist that they're going to use your protagonist's eyes and ears through the story. Remember, your sleuth is your reader's guide through solving that mystery puzzle. So you get your reader to care about that sleuth by developing empathy. You have the rest of your novel to expand the setting or introduce other characters and plunge your detective into the actual mystery puzzle itself. But now at the beginning, you want to build empathy between your reader and your detective. And the best way to build empathy is to show your sleuth in action, responding to a challenge. It doesn't have to be a big challenge. It just has to be something that the reader says, oh, okay, this character, I like the way they deal with things. All right. You need to show your reader how your protagonist responds to a challenge, even a small one. So I also suggest introduce at least one character opinion. Your sleuth will have opinions about the people and the world around them, and a stated opinion creates an immediate connection with your reader. Even if your reader doesn't agree with the opinion, they're like, oh yeah, I know somebody who thinks that, or, oh, and it's like, there's something to hang on to. There's something to give them an emotional resonance with your character. The opinion is the reader's view into your character's psyche. It's like, oh. Um, and then, of course, you want to be in the story world at the beginning. So ground your reader in the place and time, and do that right away, right? They want to know who's in the story, where they are in the story. Give them some details about your character's surroundings. It doesn't have to be a great big long narrative scene description. You just want to give them, it's the present world, it's 100 years ago, it's 200 years ago, it's 1,000 years in the future. You just let your reader know where they are in time and space. So you want to know if it's urban or rural, or coastland or inland or small town or big city. Give them a hint of where they are. The setting doesn't matter. It's just you have to tell them where they are. All right. What matters is showing your reader where they are and how your protagonist responds to and moves through that environment. Is it Victorian London? Is it 14th century France? The time refers, the time, what a better word is, reflects the culture and mores that may or may not be familiar to your reader. So some things may be different than what the reader is used to in the time period of your story. So help your reader understand that story world. Beginning writers can mistake the everyday world of the protagonist to daily activities like eating, sleeping, getting up, a multitude of mundane tasks, and that's not it. All right. What you want in that everyday world is to show your protagonist interacting with the world and the people in it. Another thing you want to let your readers know is what is your prose style. Do you write short, snappy sentences? Do you play with words and syntax? So, whatever your prose style is, you want it to remain consistent throughout the story, because right here at the beginning is this little appetizer that says, oh, yeah, I like the way this writer writes. I like reading this, okay? So, how you write is your story's voice. And if you write in the first person point of view, your narrator, your character, is going to guide that prose style. And you have control over the third person point of view through your vocabulary and syntax. So, whatever you choose, whichever you choose, it's still telling your reader this is the way the story is going to be told for the rest of the book. And your prose style needs to remain consistent throughout the story. Just a little caveat here, if you have more than one narrator, like some people have the villain's voice come in, of course that can be different than the narration of the story. I just want to make that clear. So readers do have preferences. So make sure that your beginning shows how you tell the story. Um, and the next thing is you want to have action at the beginning of your story. It doesn't have to be a great big huge fight scene or anything like that. It's just that your detective needs to be doing something, all right? Action needs to be meaningful for your character and your story. It may be mirroring something bigger that's going to happen later in the story. Action, just to have action, isn't meaningful. Um, Worse, it's a tease for your reader. So if you're starting with this great big fight scene and your reader doesn't know who to root for, it's too early in the story, it's just going to be confusing. Um, a smaller action that reveals your detective's character is more meaningful than a big fight scene. It's like right now, here at the beginning, you want to show who your detective is. What kind of person are they? That's what your reader wants to know. Um, um, and you build your whole story context with small actions showing your character interacting with their world, the people in it, how they think about evidence and clues, that sort of thing. Um, you can build more meaning later. Now is just this tasty glimpse of what the reader's going to get later on in the story. In the beginning, think of your hero or heroine with a challenge, however small, that rewards, that reveals character traits and sets up future conflicts to those character traits, because you're going to have lots and lots of time to build up conflict and obstacles for your character. So if you set them up right at the beginning, the readers, when the conflict comes up that is opposite of a character trait, your reader's going to wonder, oh, remember right there at the beginning, how is this character going to deal with this? All right. So, somebody who does this really well is S.A. Cosby. Um, he does it for each character in Blacktop Wasteland. So, if you want to get an idea of how to do that, you can read the beginning of Blacktop Wasteland and you just know each character and how they respond to things right away. And the next thing you want in your beginning is movement. The story doesn't start later after the first few pages. It starts now. All right. Right now, very first page. All right. So when you plunge your hero into action, you move the story to the consequences of that action. So whatever your hero's doing right at the beginning, there are going to be consequences either immediately or later on in the story. And the reader needs to ask that question, is what is going to happen because your character did that? That's a great way to hook your reader into the story. It's much better than a big fight scene. It's like, what? Wait, oh, this happened to the character and then he did this? How is that going to impact their life later on in the story? So, how your hero responds to the action and what decisions they make afterward lead the reader to ask more questions. And that's exactly what you want your readers to do. You want them asking questions at the beginning. Uh, Without a hint of the story to come, the big mystery puzzle, there's no reason for your reader to keep going unless they have questions that come up, all right? So then I want to spend just a little bit of time on the first sentence. It's so important, and it is what hooks your reader into reading the whole entire rest of the story. And you can write a first sentence. Um, I would consider that first sentence a placeholder, and as you're writing your story, you can go back and work on that first sentence some more. So, Jacob Appel says an opening line should have a distinctive voice, a point of view, a rudimentary plot, and some hint of characterization. So that's a lot to jam into one sentence. So take your time with that first sentence, but make it work for your story. All right. There's a lot of work to do in that one sentence. So really take your time. Don't worry about it now. Put that first sentence in and leave it there as a placeholder and just keep going back and refining it. Keep refining until you have the sentence that plunges your reader into the story. Um, so, for so big question for today is who's on first in your story? And it's you, the writer. You are enticing your reader with all of these things: the character, the movement, the setting, the voice, the tone, all of these things. You're telling your reader, this is what your story is going to be like. And your reader can go, okay, I really like this. I like this character. What's going to happen next? Those are the kinds of things you want your reader to ask right at the beginning. They don't care how many buttons your character has on their shirt. They care about who that character is. What kind of person are they? And is this the kind of person they want to follow through an entire story? Um, the old adage is more true for a story beginning. You only have one chance to make a first impression. So this is it, your chance to make a first impression. All right, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions about your story beginning, please put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Keep writing.